Welcome, Dive. Today, we're acknowledging something really profound and often, profoundly isolating. That experience of deep inner darkness, sometimes even suicidal thoughts. It's one of the toughest internal struggles anyone can face.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're going to be drawing on, a collection of ancient wisdom texts, spiritual teaching. And they offer a really surprising perspective on this kind of pain. It really challenges how society typically labels it.
Right. So that's our mission today. To unpack these sources that, honestly, they challenge conventional beliefs quite bravely. They suggest that what feels like an absolute ending might actually be a powerful spiritual passage, a difficult one, incredibly difficult, but a passage nonetheless. We want to explore why this pain is so deeply human and maybe what transformation could lie beyond it. So let's get started.
Okay. So often, the first thing that happens, the societal narrative around this intense darkness or suicidal thinking, it's labeling, right? Depression, mental illness, instability. And that can just instantly make you feel worthless, like something's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And what's so striking is how our source material just directly counters that. Flat out. It says, and this is a quote, "This experience is not madness. This is not failure. Instead, it's described as, get this, a sacred voice, a spiritual passage so ancient and essential that it is encoded into the very design of the soul."
Wow, a sacred voice. That's a huge shift. It is. The emphasis is really on understanding that being lost is not a failure. To feel like dying is not shameful. It is human.
That's such a powerful reframing. And the sources, they use some really potent examples from history to illustrate this, like the Buddha, right? He didn't leave his palace out of happiness. He left because he saw suffering, deep suffering, and he just couldn't ignore it.
Exactly. Or Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, weeping blood. That's immense anguish being expressed right there.
And Rumi. The famous mystic, spent literally years, crying on his floor, mourning his teacher. The point the source makes is these figures were deeply human. They faced their pain, walked right into it, and were transformed because of it.
And this brings us to something really crucial the source emphasizes. The pain itself, the pain bringing someone right to that edge, it's depicted as absolutely real, and yet it is not imagined. It is not exaggerated. It is a soul-level fracture that words can hardly. There's no minimizing the agony. It's about validating its depth.
Okay, so the pain is real, deeply human. But then the perspective shifts. The source says the greatest lie pain tells is that it will last forever. It acknowledges how intense pain just eclipses everything, makes it feel eternal, but insists the light is simply hidden, waiting, buried under it all.
And that idea resonates so strongly with people who've been there. The source mentions survivors of suicide attempts. Many talk about a moment, often seconds after trying to die, when clarity rushed in like a sudden realization. The urge was not real. It was a storm, temporary and overwhelming, but not true.
Not true. Wow.
Yeah. They describe understanding that the darkness had lied, telling them they were completely alone. But in that moment, life was still with them, waiting.
That image of life just waiting, that's incredibly powerful. So if the urge isn't the ultimate truth, if it's a storm, what does the source suggest this intense suffering actually is?
Well, that profound shift points towards this idea that maybe the suffering feeling so unbearable, maybe it's a sign that something sacred is awakening, that the soul is stretching. It is crying out not for death, but for rebirth.
Rebirth, not death.
Exactly. Yeah. Which reinforces the idea that suicide is not freedom. It is interruption. It's like it cuts the thread before the tapestry is finished. An unfinished story.
Okay, so that tackles the feeling of permanence.
Yeah.
But what about the thoughts themselves? They can be terrifying. The source hits us with this core spiritual truth. You are not your thoughts. How does that even work when some thoughts feel so loud, so powerful, they shake your will to live?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because they feel so real, the source explains that a suicidal thought, even though it feels like a command, maybe even a final solution, it's not the voice of, it's the echo of pain. It is the scream of an exhausted mind trying to stop the unbearable.
An echo, a scream.
Yeah. The ancient mystics, they had this analogy, like the mind is like a river of thought. They're just passing leaves on but the crucial part, the part that matters, is the soul is the water, still and untouched beneath. It's about seeing the difference between the surface noise and the...
So being caught in that thinking doesn't mean you're defective. It's more like drowning in a river of thoughts they never chose, thoughts coming from trauma, unmet pain, fear, maybe years of feeling abandoned emotionally. It really shifts the focus away from self-blame.
Precise. The core message is you are not defined by what appears in their mind. A person is defined by what they choose. Suicidal thoughts are described almost like thieves in the night trying to steal your right to live. And it brings in Rumi again. Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure. It's not saying it's easy, not at all, but it offers a radically different way to look at it.
Which leads to another really counterintuitive point the sources make, challenging that common idea that people struggling like this or somehow weak. It asks, what if the opposite were true?
Yeah, this is pretty profound. The source reveals what it calls an unspoken truth. Many who experience these thoughts are not. They're actually often highly sensitive, deeply empathetic, and more spiritually awake than they know.
Sensitive, empathetic.
Yeah, their nervous systems pick up on the pain of the world. Their hearts genuinely long for meaning, connection, and peace. It's not a flaw. It's like a heightened attunement.
But that creates this awful tension, doesn't it? If you're that sensitive, longing for meaning, but the world has taught them to suppress those longings, taught them to just adapt to a life that feels fake. The source says the pain of living a false life can become unbearable.
Exactly. And crucially, it says the exit is not death. The exit is transformation. It's a callback to find the true life.
How does that connect to purpose?
Well, the source draws a direct line. It says, your life is not random. Your pain is not meaningless. Your soul came here with a mission. These sensitive individuals, it suggests, are inherently powerful, but they've maybe carried that power without guidance, absorbing the world's sorrow without enough understanding in return. So the pain isn't proof of failure. It's evidence of a soul that was never meant to live a shallow life.
Wow. Okay, so the pain is real. It's human. It might signal sensitivity, not weakness. And it's not meant to last forever. The source then explores this idea that the suffering is not a punishment. It is a sign that something must change. But change how?
Not by ending life, it emphasizes, but by finally beginning to live in truth. And this is where a really beautiful spiritual law comes in. The wound is the place where the light enters.
The wound is where the light enters.
Yeah. And it uses the Japanese art of kintsugi as an illustration, where they repair broken pottery.
With gold, right? They highlight the crack.
Exactly. The cracks are not hidden, they are illuminated. The teaching there is that brokenness is not a flaw. It is a design. The vessel becomes more beautiful, damaged, not despite. And it applies this to us, to the cracks in the human heart. They're meant to be healed with light, becoming beacons for us.
That kintsugi image is stunning.
Yeah.
Seeing beauty emerge from the break itself, that's radical. So how does the source explain why the soul breaks like that?
It suggests the soul breaks when the world becomes too small for its truth. It needs to make space for something larger, something real. So the breaking isn't the end. It's the middle of the story. It's framed as a descent, like in the old myth, into the underworld. Think Persephone, Orpheus, even Jesus' time in the...
A descent. So the breakdown is not failure. It is the sacred underworld where transformation happens.
Precisely. And the source highlights the absolute heroism in choosing to stay even for one more day. That choice isn't just survival, it's crossing a threshold, the beginning of a return, not just back to life, but towards becoming who they were always meant to become.
That's incredible. This idea that the most wounded souls are often the most gifted, and the pain itself comes not to destroy, but to awaken.
Right. It completely flips the script on suffering.
So what lies on the other side of this awakening? What emerges after this descent and return?
The source talks about rebirth, about the revelation of a deeper self, a core self that's actually untouched by trauma, loss, or confusion. It suggests this self was always hidden, waiting patiently under all the layers we build up.
And this connects to that idea of a golden seed.
Yes, the golden seed that awakens when you choose not to give up. It's described as the indestructible core, the part carrying the divine blueprint of who you truly are, beneath everything else.
How does suffering help that seed awaken? It seems counterintuitive.
Because suffering, according to these texts, has this strange power to strip away everything false. It digs deep, it softens the soil, it breaks open what is hard and forgotten. And that process allows this seed, core self, to finally stir. It introduces a term from ancient Vedic philosophy, sabhava. Yeah. It means something like one's innate nature, your essential being, the self that emerges when all the external conditioning, all the shoulds and fears are stripped away, revealed by the fire.
And after enduring that kind of fire, that collapse, does your perception change?
Fundamental. The source describes a shift where the world starts to look like a mirror. Challenges aren't just obstacles. They become less. People become teachers. The soul stops chasing. It begins to attract. What used to just cause pain now holds. It's a whole reorientation to life itself.
That's a profound shift.
And to sort of bring this all together, the source points to this incredible quote from the Thunder Perfect Mind Gospel found in the Nag Hammadi texts. It says, I am the one who has been hated and the one who is loved. I am the one who exists in all fear and the strength in trembling. This is presented as the voice of the awakened, one that can hold paradox, that doesn't need to pretend anymore or run away from the complex. It embraces it all.
Wow. So for you listening right now, the message from these sources is incredibly direct. It's saying, You are not cursed. You are not alone. You are not failing. You are being prepared.
Yeah.
You are not here to disappear. You are here to return, not as who you were, but as who you really are.
Exactly. The idea is that this soul fire, as calls it, it will burn off the illusions, burn off the shame.
Yeah.
It'll reveal the diamond that pain tried to bear. And the world needs that. It needs the ones who have fallen and gotten back up. The ones with scars and stories and trembling hands. The ones who know the taste of darkness and still choose to offer light. And more. Your mission, it suggests, is not over. In truth, it hasn't even begun.
So here's something to really sit with. If your deepest challenges, as these ancient sources suggest, are actually part of your awakening, what unique wisdom, what specific purpose might be waiting to emerge from within you right now? What lesson, forged in your own particular fire, might you be uniquely positioned to share? Perhaps to light the way for others who find themselves walking through their own darkness. We really invite you to reflect on these ideas, on your own journey. How might your own experiences fit into this universal pattern of falling, descending, and ultimately rising again?